Welcome to the World of Horror podcast with Mom and Mac. This is the podcast where we share our love of international horror. Everyone has their fears, but we are not afraid of subtitles. Before we get into it, fair warning, these discussions will include spoilers and language which may not be suitable for all listeners. Let's move on to our first segment, Mom and Mac Chat.
Hi, Mac. How's it going?
Hi, Mom. It's going okay. I am recovering, and I had a surgery. No big deal. And yeah, just this was weird. Surgery's weird.
Is this like
my third?
Your third surgery? Okay. Yeah.
You know what I was thinking? It's so weird how your memory works with surgery. Like, I remember them wheeling me into the OR, but I don't even remember the countdown. And then the other day I was like, wait, Alan, did you dress me? And he was like, yeah, we dressed you, like you and I I helped you, but you also dressed yourself. I was like, I don't even remember that. It's just weird.
Also, I think the drugs, mess up your brain too.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And weird.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing okay. I just had spring break. I had a whole week off.
Nice.
And oh man, it came just at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And remember how I said last show that like on today, I was going to have 10 classes. Well, I only have 9 because one of my classes didn't make. And that's good. That's good. It's all good. The class that I'm starting today has only 10 people in it, which is great. So I'm excited. I feel like I'm going to try some new stuff with them. I'm going to get to know them really well. They're going to get to know each other really well. And I'm just like super excited like for that group.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Cause my other classes are like 30 people, so
yeah,
this is nice. It's a rare thing. It's a treat. So
those were always my favorite classes. Like, I had one class with 6 people. Mm-hmm. That was really fun. Like, you do just get to, like, those are your buds then for the whole semester.
Yeah, this is an online class, but I was thinking maybe we could even do, some Zooms or something like that. So we could, actually get to know each other. That's something that I had sort of done last summer. Kind of a drop-in kind of a thing, because I was just trying to find ways to make the online students feel more like they were having like a real classroom experience, So I'm kind of excited about that. I'm disappointed about the money I'm not going to make this next 5 weeks, but it's a trade-off. I get more time to myself, so
yeah,
that's a good thing.
Yeah. I feel you about money though. Like, God, I've just had a lot of expenses recently, and like, I don't know, it's so stressful. Like, I'll let you WoHos know. Well, I won't go into like super specific details, but like, I had kind of like a weird medical thing happened, but then I found out that I could be entitled to financial compensation. And when I tell you that just turned my situation around, like, not to sound shallow, but I really was like, I mean, if I could get money off of this, that actually does make it all better. Like, it's not good that I guess I would rather it not have ever happened, but getting money, it really would help me. So, silver linings.
I know. When you said that, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, go for it. Like, that's never happened. Nothing like that's ever happened to me. And you see those commercials and stuff, but it sounds like you qualify. So
God, I really hope so. 'Cause, it's wild. There's a whole Forbes like website of just like all this information and I was just like, oh wow, like I check all of these boxes. Okay, maybe this isn't so bad. And it kind of like when I was watching then Jacob's Ladder, there's a moment where they're trying to, talk to the lawyer and they're like, we're not in this for money. And I was like, oh, I am. I don't even care about like truly I'm in this for selfish reasons. Like, sure, I hope this doesn't happen to anybody else, I guess. But if it does, I hope they get money.
I mean, the money that you're entitled to too.
That's nothing to sneeze at.
No, nothing to sneeze at. So that's great. I hope it all works out like it, I hope it all works out in the best way.
Me too. Like, and honestly, even if it's the worst case scenario and nothing happens, even just the idea of it has like completely, I was spiraling today. And then when I was like, oh, I could at minimum have $25,000 extra dollars, I'll be fine. It's all going to be okay.
Yeah.
That's scary. That's scary how much money affects the psyche.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, it sure affects mine.
But, and like, I guess it makes you think like, what would I do for money? Like guaranteed money, what would you do? I guess I would go through a medical thing. I guess I would. God.
Yeah, I really don't want to think about it. Actually, I can't remember the name of there's like a series on YouTube and I can't remember the name of it, but it's like they break down like philosophical concepts and things like that. And he had one on Mr. Beast. And I really want to like go back and see that because my kids think that Mr. Beast is this hero. They love him.
Oh my God. I have so many thoughts on this.
Yeah.
To me, it's so wild because the hero worship of him makes me feel sick to my stomach. Because what I see it is, hey, poor people, dance for me. Dance for me. Because who's making the most money? Him. Obviously, is it not dystopian that there are people willing to do all of this for money and we're all willing to watch it and then it's spun as this like feel good story? That's gross. Yeah. And when I said that once when I used to stream and then I posted a clip of it on YouTube, you would not imagine the vitriolic comments I got of like, what are you doing for people? I don't know. I'm not making them dance for money. Anytime in my life I've given money to like a homeless person, I've never been like, and now do a little trick for me. There's never been, and I never filmed it and I never posted it online. Like, I don't know. Like, I think both things can be true. I think people can have benefited from knowing Mr. Beast and that is also a weird dystopian thing that we're just accepting as like normal.
Yeah. Yeah. I never really knew that much about him, but I have a really different view after just sort of like looking at this video for a little bit. But it's like a 30-minute video. He does a nice deep dive on him and stuff. So
yeah,
I'll send it to you when I find it again.
I'm interested.
Yeah.
Because when you watch his videos, like, I don't know, I don't feel good. I just feel gross.
Yeah. It is. And there's always been this kind of thing,
Yeah. Philanthropy in quotes.
Yeah. And it always makes me feel real bad.
I mean, the fact that unironically he did like a Squid Games thing. It's like, did we all miss the point of Squid Games? Like, and the fact that there's like a Netflix show that's not the Netflix show. That's like a real life thing. Like, did we all miss the point? That wasn't a feel good story.
Yeah. It is very disturbing.
Yeah. And it's very disturbing that young people do worship him to me. I'm just
they really do.
The media literacy is just not there. It's just, you're missing something. And then I don't know, like there's just, again, this whole idea of like, well, what have you done? It's like, well, you know what? Like, I don't have money, so I don't know what you want me to do.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That hatred, I've never really had that kind of a thing, although I said something about Joe Rogan in my class,
Oh
something
boy.
disparaging.
Good.
And then, yeah, there was a little pushback. And they're like, you don't like his politics? I'm like, I don't like his politics. I don't think he argues well. I think he's got some, ideas about conspiracy theories that seem a little bit racist. So I have lots of problems with Joe Rogan. And they were like, oh, well, I like him. And I'm like,
Yikes.
okay, well, we all have a right to like who we like, but I feel like I've got pretty good reasons for not liking him.
God bless you. I mean, if that's like, if you are somebody that they respect and that is something that they've heard, I think that's even just an amazing first step. Because that's like, because the way I would put it is I would be like, oh, he's a fucking stupid idiot. So it's even good that you did it like gently, because I know that would never get anyone on my side if I was like, oh, I think he's a huge fucking stupid idiot. Nobody would ever listen to me, even though it is true that he is dumb. Same thing with fucking Elon Musk. I have a coworker who, like, when I first met him in person, it was like the second sentence out of his mouth was talking about how much he likes Elon Musk. And I took everything in me to not be like, well, this relationship is just not going to work out. So I will bid you adieu. If you think he's smart, you're dumb. Like, and what's wild is that, like, I don't know. Well, I was about to reveal more about my job, but I don't want to dox myself. Anyways, just know that he's stupid, and I hate him. And when I hear men liking him, it's just like you lose 1 million points of respect from me.
Yeah. No, I mean, this was in my critical thinking class, and we've been actively trying. We did a whole unit on conspiracy theories, and I just went at it like, what are we going to do when we confront somebody who believes one of these things? Not like, how many of you believe anything like this? I asked them the kind of conspiracy theories they had heard. And then I said, how would you approach somebody? What open-ended questions would you ask somebody, especially about something that's been disproven, And they came up with some really good ones, but I was a little worried because there were kind of some Q-looking people, in the back, and they're sweet as can be. But, just like the patches that they have on their jackets or, little clues. And I was just like, oh, this could go very, very wrong. But it's not completely neutral. I mean, I definitely inject my opinion, but I just shared a story about how I confronted a loved one who was entertaining a conspiracy theory. And I was like, I kind of didn't know how to get in there. And I finally just ended up saying, it is stupid for you to believe this. So I said to my students, what could I have said differently? And then I just kept bringing it up. I'm like, now don't be like me. Make sure that you, and it's nice to kind of use myself as like the bad example. And then they can come up with, great examples of things that they can do otherwise.
That's really smart, because I struggle with that. I really do struggle with, like at my, at my last job, I had a coworker. This was in the midst of COVID, and I had a coworker who is a fan of Joe Rogan and Elon Musk and all that. And I could not enter that conversation gently. And granted, it is hard when you're very emotionally tied to something like people who are very transphobic. It's always going to be difficult for me to be like, well, let's rethink this. And Pete, you should be like that. That is the better way to get somebody on your side. But it's easier to do, I think, with other things when you are like an ally. I mean, you'll still be emotional, but you know what I mean? Like, when it's somebody who looks like you, it's a little bit harder to be like, let's rethink this. So I just was totally like, what are you talking about, you stupid fuck? And it did, and I don't think he was expecting me to react like, because I was at all my jobs, I'm very much like, yes, thank you. I will help you. Hee hee. And I just was like, why would you say that? And then eventually I was like, you know what? I think we're just going to have to agree to disagree. I can't talk to you. So that's not the way to do it.
Yeah, it's really tricky. We're going to start on debate tomorrow, and we'll see how that goes. It is really, I've never, I haven't taught this class in like almost 10 years, and it's really fun, but it's really challenging. But the week after this one, we're going to talk about tropes in movies and TV, and I'm going to have them rewrite a scene. Like pick a trope and then rewrite it. And I think that'll be kind of fun.
I want to take your class. It sounds so fun.
It is super fun. It's good times. But I tell you, somebody who wasn't having a good time.
What a great segue.
Thanks. I've been working on it. Jacob. Jacob was not having a good time.
To say the least.
So you did not text me at all when you were watching this, which is different than normal. So I'll be very curious to hear your opinions on this film. All right. Jacob's Ladder, the brief plot summary from IMDb. Jacob Singer is trying to make sense of his fractured life and memories. Plagued by hallucinations, flashbacks, and conspiracies, he struggles down a path to enlightenment from these manic strains. With nothing but support from friends and loved ones, will he be able to push through the haze of his PTSD? Directed by Adrian Lyne, written by Bruce Joel Rubin, starring Tim Robbins, Elizabeth Pena, Danny Aiello, Matt Craven, Pruitt Taylor-Vince, Jason Alexander, and also Eric LaSalle, Ving Rhames, Essa Patha Murkerson, Louis Black, Kyle Gass, and Macaulay Culkin in supporting roles. Cinematography by Jeffrey L. Kimball, edited by Tom Rolfe, music by Morris Jere. Release date, November 2, 1990 in the US, and it has a running time of 113 minutes. How'd you feel about this runtime, Mac?
Too long. I don't think it should have been that long.
Okay. I went pretty detailed with the plot, and so Okay, well, I'll go ham. I will go ham. But there are also pages that I did not transcribe. And so
for the listeners, Mom is holding up a bunch of written pages.
Okay, this is a film I think I probably saw in the theater. I would have been 21 when it came out. And I also remember watching it a lot with your dad. I think we must have watched it, a bunch of times. And so this is a movie that I've seen a ton.
It's very beautiful. Like, I think the visuals are great. And like, I mean this in like a good way. It all looks very dusty, but in a way that like only 90s movies can look. Do you know what I mean? Like, they don't make them like this anymore. Like, there's so many buildings in this that I feel like you can just smell. You can smell the rooms in this movie, and not in a bad way.
Yeah. So in the opening, we're in the Mekong Delta in 1971. It's the guys are having a little bit of downtime. They're getting high, joking about masturbating themselves and others. And then somebody out of the blue has a seizure. Someone just starts shooting. Ving Rhames falls on his face. Another guy's vomiting. They're under attack. And while all this is going on, one man sits frozen crying, watching the scene. Jacob makes it to the woods and is bayoneted in the gut. He looks confusedly at his attacker before falling. He wakes up with a start on the subway, reading Camus' L'Étranger. An anti-drug sign reads hell. So what did you think at this point, Mac?
Okay, here's the thing. I promise you, I have heard nothing about this movie. I did not know anything. I'd never heard a single spoiler. And when I mentioned to Alan that we were watching this, he said, "Oh, I've never seen it, but I know what happens." And my first thought, this was when I began the movie, my first thought was just like, yeah, he's dead. Like, I don't know how that's a surprise. And I guess it makes the movie feel a little bit too long to me, where I'm just like, yeah, how would you survive a bayonet in the gut? He's dead. Like, how did he go from this to this? Now I'm not going to say I knew how everything plays out, but I guess just to me, my first thought when I saw this was he's dead and this is a hallucination. And I don't think that makes me like, I'm not saying like, oh, I knew this because I'm very smart. I like the movie is like gives you these hints, you know?
Yes.
It's not obfuscating the fact, especially when 2 minutes in, a woman tells him you're dead. So
Right.
I thought that was a bit weird that they gave you that immediately.
Yes.
I guess to me, it makes it just feel a little bit too long because then you're waiting the whole time for the end. And then the end to me, so I'm getting ahead of myself. I liked the
It's okay.
visuals.
I mean, this is a very old movie, and I think it's okay to spoil it right off the bat. I mean, we warn people every single week that that's what we do.
Yeah.
So I think it's fine if you want to talk about the ending.
I guess, yeah. Just to me, I was hoping for a little bit more oomph, but I did like, there were some parts that made me jump. Anyways, so that's where I'm at in the beginning.
Okay. So this movie was based on a couple of things, apparently. Dante's Divine Comedy and the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And so I did want to talk about some of the symbolism and stuff like that. One thing I don't know if I ever knew it. I know I read Dante's Inferno, but again, that was probably also about the time I was, 20, 18, somewhere in there. And so I don't remember it very clearly, but there is the first circle of hell. There are 9 circles of hell. And the first circle of hell is limbo. And it's a waiting room where you might have people who are like kind of more pagan, like they didn't have access to Christ or whatever, like Socrates and shit. They're like hanging out there. But, this train, there's not a train in that story. There's actually a boat, that carries people from, I think it's the first circle, first or second, I don't know, on into the other circles. But yeah, it's an interesting thing, especially if you've seen it once, when he wakes up and the first thing he kind of, quote unquote, wakes up and the first thing he sees is a sign saying hell, so it's kind of, it is awesome. So he's sharing a train car with a woman who just stares at him and an unhoused man who seems to have a tail under his overcoat. When Jacob gets off the train, he finds that he cannot exit the station, and so he walks on the tracks, where he's almost run over by a train. Passengers stare at him from the train. The conductor, whose face is obscured, slowly waves at him.
I thought any time that somebody had like an obscured face, that was so creepy.
Yes.
Like the kind of blurry face in the window as it goes by. Whew, that was scary.
Yeah.
And I do like the idea of like the symbolism of, if a lot of people who have been in wars or just even in the army in general, like other people don't feel like the same to them,
Mm-hmm.
like they themselves don't feel like a normal person because they have this wild experience that most people have not had. So I feel like that would be really scary.
Yeah. Also, I feel like, The Stranger is a story about a man who doesn't feel like life has any meaning, and he is kind of in confrontation with society. And when Vietnam vets came back, they were not welcomed home with open arms. There was a lot of shame that we as a country felt. I guess I wasn't really here yet, but I've heard tell. And so I think that also that sort of, not feeling like connected also is represented here.
And I gotta say, that must be horrible. Because, like,
Yeah.
I for one, I'm trying to say this in a respectful way. Like, I don't hold anything against anybody who's been in the military personally. I don't personally see being in the military as like an honorable thing. I don't see like war or anything as honorable, but I see people in the military as like victims, especially if you were drafted. I mean, what kind of say did you have in that? But all that being said, if you went through all of that and then you have like the experience, of back in the day, you got the picture of that guy kissing that woman in the square, and it's like people were throwing parties, but now everybody's like ashamed of you, and now you're traumatized too. What the fuck? That's horrible. And I mean, it's not like our country takes care of its veterans anyway. So I don't know. It just seems horrible.
Yeah, I really feel for Vietnam vets, it's just not right the way I think, you're right. I mean, in general, we don't take care of our veterans very well. But the guys and women who came back from Vietnam were really not treated well.
Yeah.
There are pennies in the window of the elevator at home. He awakens his girlfriend, Jezzy, who razzes him about how bad he looks before joining him in the shower. And I gotta say, the chemistry between these two is really nice. I don't know.
This actress was great. I thought she did a great job. I did find it wild that they literally named this character Jezebel.
Yeah.
Again, I do not feel like this movie's very subtle.
No, it's not. It's not.
Like, you call this woman Jezebel, and and she's the woman he's with after his wife. Like,
yeah.
But I thought this actress was so. Anytime she was on the screen, she like steals the show.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and this is also like peak Robbins. With his little baby face and his dimples, and oh my God, he's so adorable. He looked very handsome. Back in Vietnam, Jacob stares up at a spider web decorated with raindrops as he lies on his back. In his dream/flashback, he whispers, "Help me." He awakens with a start. Jezzy says that one of his kids dropped off an envelope with photographs in it. At first, he is delighted to see them, but when he finds a picture of Gabe, his youngest son, he starts to cry. Jezzy asks him if this is the one who died before he went to Vietnam. Jezzy roughly gathers up the photos and tells him she doesn't like things that make him cry. She later throws all of the photos, except for the one Jake has slipped into his wallet, into the incinerator.
Which is a wild thing to do.
Yeah.
I don't like things that make you cry. You know what? Crying's healthy, actually. It's like probably one of the best things you could do if you're in his situation.
Yeah, that's another thing too. I mean, I know it's kind of weird to like dissect the timeline because literally none of this is happening.
Yeah.
But this is just a projection of his brain, like as he's dying. But this would have been 77, 78. And I know, we've come a long way, but I just feel like nobody knew about PTSD in the 70s. Like, it's just,
I mean, men
really
even
tragic.
now, the fact that men now feel like that they have issues accessing their emotions. It's like,
yeah,
God, imagine back then. Like, I don't know. Just, I've always hated that in, like, it's a realistic thing, but I've always hated it in movies and in real life when people are like, don't cry. No, cry. Like, you should. Like, I remember I was on Prozac for a while and it just wasn't very good for me. And as soon as I got off of it, it was so much easier for me to cry, and it felt so good because for years it would be like I would know that I needed to cry and I literally couldn't. And I don't know, just imagining somebody who doesn't have experience, I guess, or feels ashamed to do that, it's so stifling. It feels horrible.
Yeah.
Like, you lost a child. You should cry.
Yeah, definitely. And he's apologizing. He's like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Well, I have a thought on that. Jacob is in a mail truck, driving a mail truck, singing Sunny Boy. He and Jez work at the post office. He is going home early today, though, because his back hurts. Now we see him with Louis, his chiropractor, getting an adjustment. Louis says he thinks Jake should go back to his ex. On one particularly deep adjustment, Jacob flashes back to Vietnam. And then when he comes back, he tells Louis that he looks like an angel. And he also says that he's a lifesaver.
I've never gone to a chiropractor, and I never will. I hear that they're like witch doctors.
Yeah, they're
It's not real.
No. I've been to many.
Anytime I see a clip, it disturbs me.
No, I haven't been like in a while. But yeah, it's
not real.
It's not real.
You need PT. You don't need a chiropractor.
Yeah, PT is definitely something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back on the street, he is serenaded by a bevy of black women who sing "Please, Mr. Postman" to him.
I love this scene.
It is so cute. Suddenly, he's chased off the street by a careening car. A man yells at him to look out. The people in the car have strange, distorted faces.
Creepy.
Jacob goes to his old doctor's office, but the nurse says there's no doctor there by that name, and she also has no record of Jake. She bends over, and when her cap falls off, Jake sees bone-like protuberances on top of her head. He runs to the doctor's office where a group therapy session is in session, and the doctor tells him that Dr. Carlson died a month ago when his car blew up.
What a shock that would be.
At home, Jake tries to explain the strange creatures he has seen to Jezebel. He tells her that people were trying to kill him and that they weren't human.
She's not a very supportive girlfriend either.
Not really. She's like, okay. They're bag ladies and, I don't know, lowlifes. And
yeah, she's just not getting it.
No. Jacob and Jezzy are at a party. There's a weird animal head in the fridge next to the beer, and Esapatha Merkerson reads his palm. She says, according to his lifeline, he's already dead.
And she keeps saying it is the thing. It's not like a throwaway line. She keeps saying it and they keep laughing. And I just feel like I like the palm reading, but I just wish that hadn't been in there. Like 10, 20 minutes into a 2-hour-long movie where where like the big whammy is that he's dead at the end. It's like, why would you do that in the beginning of the movie? Like, what person, I don't mean to offend, but what person is watching that scene and going, oh, that's weird, and not thinking anything of it? I don't know. Would you not think, oh, maybe he's dead?
Yeah.
The movie's giving it to you. It's like putting it on a sign.
Jake doesn't want to dance, so his girlfriend dances with someone else. Jacob has a freak out. He hallucinates a blackbird flying. He sees a man in the corner do the shaky head effect thing. A creature is snapping at him. Girlfriend now seems to be having sex with some kind of demon who pierces her mouth with its horn. Jacob collapses, screaming on the floor, and flashes back. Men are looking down at him and saying they'll have to push his guts back in. At home, he has a fever of 106, and Jezzy puts him in the bathtub with cold water and ice cubes at Louis Black's suggestion. Jake freaks out as more and more neighbors bring ice and pour it on him. He screams that they are killing him.
So he probably felt cold when he was stabbed.
Or when he went into shock after he was. But also, there's a really nice, really brief shot where he's being, sort of set into the bathtub where he looks like Christ. Like he's got these people, I don't know. And then this music comes in right at that moment. And
I also really like when she takes him home, she's like, I've never been so mortified. You just screaming there. I felt like that was such a great scene because, again, with the PTSD allegory, I could see that of like, I don't know, somebody not understanding the very real pain that you're going through and it not being socially acceptable to show a freak out. I mean, I even feel like nobody has said such a thing to me, but I feel like I have had shame like that of being like, why can't I be normal? I mean, like, even at a party like that, I feel like I would have a similar freak out.
Oh,
like,
I would never
I can't.
I can't.
Yeah. I one time went to like a college party with a friend and people were packed in like that. And I had to leave and be outside. Like I was just like, I'm sorry, but I cannot be in there. And I felt like a bad friend because and this friend was so nice. It was not an issue to her. But, in that moment, I felt like such a bad friend. I was like, why can't I do this? But you can't help it. And I just feel like that was a very good scene. And then when she sees that, oh, there's something wrong with him, then she gets worried on his behalf. But in the beginning, she's just embarrassed of him.
Well, she doesn't have any access to what's going on with him, and she even says things like, you're acting crazy. And if you're crazy, I can't be with you, just like shit like that.
Yeah. Not supportive.
No, not at all. Back in bed, he wakes up beside his ex-wife, Laura, and explains he had a crazy dream that he was living with his coworker, Jesse. But we're back in the past because baby Macaulay Culkin comes in and says he wants Jacob to tuck him in bed. And Jake sings to him.
This scene was very sweet. It made me very sad.
Back to Vietnam, there's a low-angle shot of leaves against the blue sky. A voice says, "Don't think we have a chance down here." Jacob wakes up in the bathtub and Louis Black is telling him he's lucky and he must have friends in high places. In Vietnam, Jacob's body is lifted into a helicopter.
He's literally in a high place.
Jacob wakes up in bed. Jesse says he's home and everything's going to be all right. All night in his dreams, he was talking to Sarah and the kids, even the dead one.
Which is such a crazy thing to say. It's kind of weird.
She's the worst.
She's really the worst.
He asks if he is dead. Now he goes into research mode, learning about various demons, and he reads Dante's Inferno. Jesse tells him he has to get out of the house. It's been 2 weeks. She shouts at him and then appears to be a demon. He pushes her away.
Which, again, great allegory, like of, I don't know, just being, I just feel like that's such a classic, thing a lot of people experience.
Mm-hmm. The phone rings. It's Paul Gruniger. They meet at a pool hall and figure it must be 5 or 6 years since they have seen each other. Paul is distraught. He says he is going to hell. Creatures have been following him. He is scared going to get him. Jake says he knows what he's talking about. He's seen them too. That guy who warned Jake before is in the pool hall being a creeper.
I did like
and
that
this
guy.
is I did too, but Pruitt Taylor Vince is the guy, Paul here, who is like really scared. I love it whenever he shows up in a film. Paul is killed when his car blows up. Mystery Man pulls Jacob out of the way, but then runs away. And it kind of gave me, what was that film we watched with Comfort Films? Remember with the car accident and like the guy pulls, fucking,
what was it? The black and white one?
No, the one, the 70s one with Roy Scheider. The truck one.
Isn't that one in black and white?
No, it's not in black and white. The black and white one was the French movie.
Oh,
The Wages of
but
Fear.
this was the remake.
This was the remake, and it's like the name
the
of
sorcerer?
the truck. Yes!
Yeah.
Yeah, really gave me sorcerer vibes.
Yeah.
Just this little part. At Paul's funeral, Jake reunites with his platoon. He tells them what Paul said, and Ving is noticeably upset and drops his beer, and Eric LaSalle has tears in his eyes. They all meet on the roof. Ving cradles a pigeon. Did you see that? It was so sweet.
Really sweet.
Jake says they have to find a lawyer. Rod says it was just bad grass because there's no such thing as demons.
There's always one in the group.
Jason Alexander is the lawyer. He crunches on ice and says he'll look into it. And if they have a case, they might all be in for a big payday.
And then Jacob goes, "We're not in this for the money." And that's when I went, I am.
Through the windscreen, we see them emerge from the lawyer's office. But then Jason Alexander calls to say all Jake's friends have backed out And then he followed up on their story, but they were never in Vietnam. They were all discharged on psychological grounds, playing war games in Thailand. They never even made it to Vietnam. All right, now we have to go to the paper notes. I hope this doesn't make too much noise.
Just do it right in the mic.
All right. He's manhandled into a car. Then there's this mafioso looking dude. And he says this great line. You're in over your head, Mr. Singer. Men drown that way.
That was great.
Come on.
And I was like, you fool, you think you could ever sue the fucking army? Like, good fucking luck.
And he also says the army was part of another life.
Mm.
The car careens all over. Oh, well, so they're beating up Jacob. Then Jacob starts beating them up and the car is careening all over the place. And Jacob eventually throws himself out of the car in front of Santa Claus, this guy who's like ringing the bell for the Salvation Army.
This part made me laugh out loud.
So I guess this is the part where he broke his back.
Yeah. But the Santa opens up his shirt and grabs his wallet and goes, "Oh!" I was dying.
And that leads to a really wonderful line in the next scene where we get the gurney sequence. So, oh my God.
This is my favorite part in the movie.
It is. Besides the dance demon scene.
Mm-hmm. The way this one escalates is so just mwah. And like, I really do have a lot of like medical anxiety, and like this just hits all the notes, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like being strapped down and noticing all of these things being wrong. And it just, the way that it escalates is so subtle. I mean, and then it turns to obviously not very subtle, but I feel like, you know, it begins already with being like, you know, usually hospitals are pretty fluorescent. Like this place is kind of dark. And then, you know, he sees Gabe's like broken bicycle, and then it just keeps getting worse. It's so good.
Yeah, they wheel him quote down to X-ray in this decrepit building, and there are people in a psych ward. He passes through this like area of the hospital, and everyone's staring at him. There's blood on the walls. There are bloody body parts strewn on the floor, and we get another shaky head man. He's strapped down. Screws are screwed into his head. And Jesse is one of the doctors. And the main doctor is like, he's like Jacob says something like, I want to go home. And he goes, you are home. Don't you remember? You died. And he's like, this is your home. And he's like, I got to get out of here. And he goes, no, there's no getting out of here. Like, so flashback to Vietnam. And then in the hospital, Sarah and the boys, but not Gabe, come to see him in the hospital. And he says to Sarah, I'm not dead. I'm alive. I'm not dead. And she's like, yeah, dude, you're alive. And I still
two
love
shitty
you.
kids who aren't Gabe laugh at him. Mom's
no,
like,
I thought
don't
that
laugh.
was cute.
That was pretty cute.
Was cute.
It's just funny that they like, I feel like we don't know anything about these kids.
No.
And Macaulay Culkin looked so cute, but these kids just look so kind of mean.
Kind of just meathead kids.
Yeah.
He's going to be in the hospital for a month. Sarah says she still loves him, but then he hears a voice that says, dream on.
And he's like, no, because he knows it's about to end.
Yes.
Which is really sad.
He whispers to Sarah, help me. Now Louis comes into the ward. This is another great scene. Danny
so
Aiello,
funny.
he busts in, he's like yelling for Jacob. Jacob, where are you? And he rescues Jacob, and he startles sweet Becky Ann Baker, the redheaded nurse. Did you notice her?
Who is she?
She was the mom in Freaks and Geeks.
Oh, I didn't even realize. She looks totally different.
She's also in A Simple Plan, but she's one of my favorites, and she doesn't get a lot of work, but I'm always happy when she shows up. So Louis does his adjustment. Jake. Sorry, Louis does an adjustment on Jake and cures him of his paralysis.
What all chiropractors say they can do.
This one actually can do it.
Yeah.
So he says this part about Meister Eckhart. And I just was copying this down from the movie as I was going. I didn't look up the actual quote, but he says, Meister Eckhart saw hell too. And he said, the only thing that burns in hell is what you won't let go of in life, memories, attachments. But it's not a punishment. They're just trying to help you, release so that you can move on. If you're frightened of dying and you're holding on, you'll see devils tearing your life away. But if you've made peace, devils are really angels. And so maybe this might be a good time to talk about the names.
Mm.
So Louis might be Lucifer. But his whole name is Louis DiNardo. And so I put his name in an anagram engine.
Ooh, you did do a deep dive.
Doornails is one of the anagrams of his name. He can stand and he can walk. And Louis says, hallelujah. At home, Jake he finds a cigar box with all his discharge papers in it. He was discharged private first class in July of 1972. He had a master's degree, and there are pictures of his buddies in the platoon and his dog tags, and a note from Gabe. Oh my God, that was so cute. Memories. He flashes back to memories of teaching Gabe to ride a bike, and then Gabe's subsequent death. And I really like this sequence, even though it's tragic. So, we see the dad and the kid walking, from behind. And then I like the part where Macaulay kind of like drives down the slope, but we're stuck on Gabe. So we know we're putting it together now, but in case you had any doubt, we see that Macaulay goes into the street, and then we see a truck slam into his bike.
It makes sense why there's so many, in his head, there's so many dangerous things with cars.
Yes.
Cars are always chasing him, or something bad is always happening in a car.
Oh, that's a great connection. I hadn't put that together. He hallucinates Gabe skipping through the house, but then he sees a head shaky man.
This part's made me jump. That's a true jump scare.
Jezebel comes home, and she's like, where were you? And she was really scared. And he's like, I was in the hospital. And she's like, what hospital? I called all the hospitals. But, and he's got a really strong startle response. I don't know. I wrote that down. I can't remember why. But that's a PTSD symptom. I have that. This kid, I was there. So in my classroom, the screen is right by the door, and I was on the far side of the screen, kind of pointing something out. And this kid came in right behind me, and God. I was just he might have even touched my shoulder, and I was just and then I just had to take a second. And he goes, and he kept going, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. And I'm just like, Matthew, it's fine. I'm just a mess. Oh, jeez.
That used to happen to me all the time at my old job, because the door would be really loud when somebody would open it. So I even wrote a note please do a gentle knock before you open up this door. But then my boss would just bust through the door to because he thought it was funny. Because I would yell every time. And even now, I feel so bad because anytime Alan comes into this room, and obviously I don't have a camera on, and I have headphones in, he does his best to not scare me, and every time I always get so scared, and he's always like, I am so sorry, and I'm like, it's literally not you. You did your best.
Yeah I hope I never lose my hearing, because
oh God, it'd be over.
Yeah, but your brother used to do that to me all the time.
It's such a dick thing to do.
It is. Don't do it.
Yeah.
WoHos, don't ever do it. It's not funny. So, the startled response is because the phone rings again, and it's the chemist. He says that he was in, it's like exposition time. So he says that he was a chemist in the chemical warfare unit out of Saigon. And do you want to meet and let's talk it out? So Jake meets Michael Newman. Michael is an archangel. Newman is a Catholic cardinal, but also new man. I don't know if that's important. This guy's been following Jake because he's one of the survivors. Then he tells this whole story about how he was arrested in 1968 for drugs, but he was given this deal by the army if he would come and develop this drug that makes people incredibly aggressive and violent, then all his charges would be dropped. So he did it. And he made this drug called the ladder. And first they experimented on monkeys, and then they tried it out on Vietnamese POWs. And he said he didn't know that men could do those kind of things. And with the line that really got me, he said, the guys who zipped up the body bags are in worse shape than you are.
Yeah. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. There was a big offensive coming up. And so they wanted to try just a little bit on this one special platoon, Jake's platoon. And there was an attack on each other. So now he flashes back. And
this part, I also thought this scene was a little bit drawn out. I feel like anybody could guess that what he's about to say is, you guys killed each other. But I swear they say this, they run around this fact like 8 times, where he's like, well, there was an attack. And Jake's like, who? Well, it wasn't the Viet Cong. Well, who was it? You killed each other. Come on. Please just tell us.
But there's a really nice shot now where Jacob is running through the street and there's all this like steam coming up in the street. It gives me Angel Heart vibes. I know you're not a fan of Angel Heart, but there's this really great shot when Mickey Rourke is walking in to see the doctor who's like hooked on like opium or something. Anyway, very similar. Anyway,
I love how all of the, like when he's in the like real world, quote, quote, not in the war, everything's so overcast, you know, it's like really rainy and he's always around a lot of asphalt. I feel like it's a really good contrast with like the very warm jungle that he's in during the war. Like it's just like a night and day difference. And I just love the way that like an overcast side street looks.
Me too. He gets in a cab and he asks the cabbie to take him back to Brooklyn. There's a Nixon pin. So some people have suggested that actually he did come back to New York, but no, he didn't.
He totally didn't.
Yeah. The name on the cabbie's tag is A Gazzero, which it doesn't quite fit, but I thought it might be close. It's close to Azrael, and Azrael is the angel of death. So I think that works pretty good. Now he has a flashback to the bayonet attack, and he remembers it was someone in his platoon. Louis' voice comes in. All right, so Louis' voice comes in as Jake's heartbeat slows and then stops. Gabe is on the steps. The music box plays. Hi, Dad. And
this part made me tear up a little bit when he goes and he hugs Gabe, but it's like he's hugging him as if he's the child, but he's so much bigger than little Macaulay Culkin. Like his head is like the size of Macaulay Culkin's like torso, and Macaulay Culkin is just like rubbing his back, and he's like, "It's okay." It's like so bittersweet because, you know, he's leading him into the afterlife because he's already had experience being dead, and just like the kindness that like little Gabe shows towards him is like, and like he leads him holding his hand. I just thought that scene was really beautiful.
Yeah, me too. So And yeah, at the very end, after he's cradling him and everything like that, he says, come on, let's go up. And so they go up the stairs. Jacob dies in the tent in Vietnam. He looks, and then one of the doctors says, he looks kind of peaceful, the guy. Put up a hell of a fight, though.
And that doctor, is he not the guy that in his vision stabbed him with the bayonet?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it is, which then confused me because I was like, were they drugged? Like, what's...
Oh, they were drugged.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for sure they were drugged. After the end of the movie, there's a card that says it was reported that the hallucinogenic drug BZ was used in experiments on soldiers during the Vietnam War. The Pentagon denied the story.
And I love the scene when they pronounce him dead, because then the doctors just leave and there's like one guy doing like administrative stuff in the tent. And it just kind of feels like I don't know, like, I mean, this was a normal thing, you know, that is just something they had to deal with. But I felt like that scene was really beautiful in a way of like, I don't know, like death is very sad for us who are living. Death is really sad. But it is just a fact of life also. And I just felt like that scene kind of hammered that home of just like, I mean, I personally don't feel like war is a great thing that happens or something. Anybody who's died in a war, I don't think that's good. But that death itself is a natural thing and that it wasn't really treated as this like, oh my God, what a tragedy. It's just like, well, he passed away. And I thought that was really beautiful.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm not a huge Bible person or anything like that. I do find angels very interesting. And of course, we know that Gabriel was the angel that told Mary that she was going to have Jesus. Gabriel is considered to be a messenger. So then I was like, well, what about these other people? So we have Michael, the chemist. Sarah was also in the Bible. She was married to Abraham, who was the father of Isaac. And Isaac was the one who was asked to, Abraham was the one who was asked to sacrifice his son Isaac. The other two kids, there's Gabe, Elijah, and Jedediah. Those are all characters in the Bible. Paul, whatever his name is, Griniger. If you put that, I messed around with that one, and there is an archangel named Uriel, and so I thought that might have been what they were going for. And he is the master of knowledge and the archangel of wisdom. So you can see I was like taking the name and crossing out like the letters and stuff. Like,
I love that.
It was fun. And then Jacob's ladder itself was the idea that earth is joined to heaven through this ladder. And Jacob had a dream of it, of angels ascending and descending. And there was lots of interpretations of what that means. But since, you know, that's the name of the movie, and I think there are all these kind of like angels all around him, that is related to that. Yeah. And then there's a bunch of notes I made about Dante's Inferno, but we don't need to go into those. But it's kind of interesting if you've never read, you know, Dante's Inferno. It's just really interesting how he describes all the layers of hell and who is in them and how they correspond to the deadly sins and all that stuff. Here's some trivia. All the special effects were filmed live with no post-production. For example, to achieve the famous shaking head effect, director Adrian Lyne simply filmed the actor waving his head around and keeping his shoulders and the rest of his body completely still at 4 frames per second, resulting in an incredibly fast and deeply disturbing motion when played back at the normal frame rate of 24 frames per second.
That's interesting.
Certain imagery was inspired by the photographs of Joel Peter Witkin. Most recognizably, the image of the hooded, legless man shaking his head is inspired by Witkin's 1976 photograph, The Man with No Legs. Some additional scenes from the original script, which were changed or removed, During the dance scene, all the dancers turn into demons. During one of his Vietnam flashbacks, Jacob has a vision of a, quote, celestial staircase accompanied by heavenly music. Jacob watches a pastor on TV who rants about the world coming to an end. Jacob sees an image of a demon on the wall of his living room, which, when he looks closely at it, becomes a portal to hell. A scene following the, quote, antidote sequence in which the ceiling explodes and Jacob is surrounded by a vision of heaven. A different ending where Jessie turns herself inside out and transforms into a huge demon, which Jacob has to fight before ascending to heaven.
Glad they took that last one out.
Too. What does Letterboxd have to say about it? Film Bro gave it a 0.5 star. Absolute shite. Wasn't even scary, and it didn't even make sense. I wouldn't have put this movie under the horror genre. It should go under the genre for shit.
Got him.
If you're wanting to watch, don't bother. I'd rather watch paint dry, mate.
I feel like this movie did make a lot of sense. I feel like you could argue, my argument is that maybe it made too much sense. I feel like you gotta be, I'm sorry, Film Bro. I feel like you gotta be missing a lot to be like, what happened in the movie?
There were a lot of reviews like that, Mac.
I'm like shocked.
Let's see. This is Drasher. Gave it a 0.5 star. Oh, it was all a dream? Now that's one clever way to just tie your story together. I hope me watching this movie was also just a dream and I didn't waste 2 hours for zero conclusion. Up to then, the movie was interesting enough, but I guess everyone can create an intriguing mystery if they never plan on solving it.
It was solved. What are you talking about? I'm genuinely confused.
No, I think you are really smart, Mac. I think that's the problem with you. Emily Ho gave it 1 star. It sucked. Maybe it was like revolutionary and more impactful at the time. But as far as artsy, unreliable narrative films go, this one is kinda ass.
We got him. The ass review.
Thank you, Emily Ho. Jade Youngkoski gave it 5 stars. Jacob freaking out at the party is a perfect depiction of what I experience every time I go to Costco. I'm in my Tim Robbins era right now. Okay, can we retire that phrase?
Yeah.
I'm in my blank blank era.
We can.
Fuck you. Been told for years by my brother, also named Jacob, as well as many others, that this was an amazing movie, and they were all right. Line really should have done more horror. Emily gave it 5 stars. My favorite thing about this movie is that every time you watch, you come across more bits and pieces of the story. That, and how everyone can have their own interpretation of the movie depending on what aspects they choose to focus on. Is it a dream? Purgatory? Life flashing before death? It's such an amazing, timeless movie, so different and unique from most horror movies. The hospital sequence will forever give me the creeps. Same, Emily, same. Acorn gave it 5 stars. Movie so good I exploded.
Uh-oh.
And Rustwing Falcon gave it 5 stars. Man and the world around him go completely insane. Literal perfect movie. IDK, what else to say? How would we rate it? I want to rate it in shaky heads.
Okay, shaky heads. I would give it 4 shaky heads.
Oh, nice, Mac. You would?
Yeah, I feel like you could cut off 30 minutes of this movie. I really feel like this could be a 90-minute movie because, like, in my opinion, when a lot of it is like artsy sequences, you got to have the ending then be more shocking. And the fact that to me, it absolutely was the least shocking thing. Like, I do think from us talking, it has gone up 0.5 star. Like, I think if I watched it again, I would appreciate it more. But yeah, I do just feel like I wish that there hadn't been in my opinion, very overt, like symbolism and imagery, just busting you over the head, being like, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. And then try to be like, and guess what, guys? He's dead. Like, yeah, I know. But all that being said, I still feel like it was very beautiful. At least, even if, in my opinion, it was obvious, it was very beautiful to look at all times. I feel like the set pieces were incredible. The acting was very good, and the costumes and everything was incredible. So all of that made up for that. But still, I wish maybe they would have left some of that on the cutting room floor.
Mm. Yeah. Some of the pacing, like when he's in the subway station, or I don't know, he's just like walking around, and it's like, is it because we needed to see the Orthodox Jews go by, more religious, stuff, or, so, but I'm with you. I think it could have been tightened up a bit.
What would you rate it?
Oh gosh. I'd give it 4.5 shaky heads.
I appreciate it.
I really like this one.
Yeah. I feel like if I watched it again, my rating perhaps would go up.
You know what, though?
What?
I think you're right. Maybe 4.25. I mean, some of the dialogue is real dumb.
Yeah.
And, it does kind of hit you over the head a lot. But I think it's cool. I know there have been movies like this before, but it's kind of a flash forward into what his life would have been like is such an interesting thing.
Yeah.
To me.
I recently watched that Netflix show, The Midnight Club, which, by the way, I don't feel like is very good. However, there is an episode very much like this, I'm realizing, that probably was inspired by it, where one of the characters passes away, but we see what her life would have been like had she lived, and it was really depressing. And I think that's a fascinating idea of like, you'd think living would be the better thing. And I'm not trying to be like depressing, but like for this character, it was like all her friends had died and she was the only one who had lived, which I know would be hard for anyone. And I feel like that's a very interesting way to tell a story that most people wouldn't do. They would be like, oh, it would be better if you lived, but maybe that's not always true. Maybe death doesn't have to be as sad as we, like if your death is natural, I mean, which in this case, this character, it was a natural death. That doesn't have to be like a depressing thing.
Yeah, kind of like another variation on the Final Destination idea where you should have died and you somehow escaped death. No, it's not really. But I never read the Midnight Club books. I think I was a little too old for them, but Quinn was really into that show. She kept trying to get me to watch it, but I watched like a couple episodes and it just didn't grab me.
I'm sorry, Quinn. I really respect you, but the acting on that show is too abysmal for me to recommend it to anyone.
Some people really care about acting and then some people really don't, but I do.
Sometimes it's like I can really let it go, but sometimes an actor is so atrocious that I'm like, it's a crime that you were hired.
Yeah, that's the way I feel too. Well, thank you so much, Mac, for talking with me today about Jacob's Ladder.
Of course, it was a pleasure. Our second movie in the mental health genre is The Babadook. A brief plot summary from IMDb. A single mother and her child fall into a deep well of paranoia when an eerie children's book titled Mr. Babadook manifests in their homes. It was directed by Jennifer Kent, and also the screenplay was by Jennifer Kent, and it was based on Monster by Jennifer Kent. Is that a novel?
It's a short film.
Oh, okay. Well, I gotta watch. Is it watchable?
I didn't look for it, to be honest. But
it stars Essie Davis, Noah Wiseman, Haley McElhenney, Daniel Henshaw, Barbara West, and Ben Winspear. Cinematography by Radek Ladchuk and edited by Simon Ju, music by Jed Kurzel. And it was released January 17th, 2014 at Sundance, May 22nd, 2014 in Australia, with a runtime of 94 minutes. Gotta love that runtime. I remember seeing this, I feel like it was like the day after Christmas or something. I feel like that's when it was on Netflix.
So I think it came out in 2014. So how old were you then?
18.
Okay. Do you think you saw it at that age? Or
I definitely, like, as soon as it was on Netflix, I watched it.
Yeah.
And I remember being surprised, actually, because I loved it, but all the people, I'm not on Twitter anymore, and it is way better for my mental health, but at the time I was, and all of my friends on Twitter thought it was so stupid. And then that made me, like, dislike all of them. Like, that was kind of the beginning of the end, was I was like, maybe these people are stupid, because I love this movie. I still do. I still think it holds up. And yeah, it even hit me harder somehow this time.
Me too. I just watched it again today, but I guess I watched it last weekend too. And I was straight up sobbing in places and choked up in other places. It's really affecting.
I agree. Well, so I wrote down notes, but I'm also just going to read off of the plot summary from IMDb. Has the best long summary I could find. Okay. So we begin with our heroine, Amelia Vanek. She's a troubled and exhausted widow living in Adelaide, Australia, and has brought up her 6-year-old son Samuel alone because her late husband Oscar was killed in a car accident that occurred when he was driving Amelia to the hospital during labor. My first note was Samuel, like she's reading him a story and he's talking about, even before they find the Babadook like book, he's talking about monsters a lot, and he's like, "Mommy, like I'll smash its head in." And I wrote this quote from Sweeney Todd: "What a sweet, affectionate child it is." Because that's exactly the way Amelia is. She's just kind of like, all right. And I just feel like this movie, okay, this is how I described it to Alan, was I was like, it's so tragic because of the two sides to this story of Samuel doesn't deserve any of this. He's an innocent child. He hasn't done anything. And every child deserves to grow up in a happy, loving, understanding home. And at the same time, witnessing all of this, you can't be upset at Amelia. Like, you can't be upset at her because what else is she supposed to do? She did not go into this thinking she was going to be alone. Maybe she would have never even had a child if she knew she was going to be alone and doing it. And the actual act of having her child was so traumatic because she lost her husband, who at the time she obviously loved way more than this child she's never met before. And now her life is fraught with working all the time and taking care of this troubled child. Like, and so it's like Samuel deserves so much, but also you cannot be upset at her. Like,
yeah.
And I really feel like if I was in this situation, I don't know if anyone could say they would do any different than her and be like a perfect parent, you know?
That's a very sympathetic view, which a lot of Letterboxd did not share.
Letterboxd
is mean.
They don't have an empathetic bone in their body. I really don't think.
They don't.
It's like, I feel like both things can be true. We can understand that Samuel deserves better treatment. And also, like, that's why they fucking say it takes a village. You cannot be a single parent. And I'm not saying that as in like, oh, single parents. I'm saying like, they need help.
Yeah.
Like, nobody was ever expected to take care of a child by themselves, you know? How could you live in a capitalist society and take care of a child? You can't. Because, like, you know how much time I need alone every day just for myself? And she's not getting any of that. She has to spend it all with this child. She's too tired to even appreciate him, you know? I don't know. Just makes me very sad. And I knew that that's what people had said about this movie, but I just feel like I don't know how you can't be empathetic to this.
Well, I find it I'm very touched by your empathy because, you know, you grew up in a household where there were two parents. They were not mentally healthy parents. But I have empathy for her because I was in exactly her situation. Not exactly. I was a single parent until I met your dad. So for the first 6, years of your brother's life, I was a single parent. So I have a lot of empathy for her, but I am very impressed by your level of empathy because that's great. That means that you have a big heart and a big imagination and you can put yourself in other people's places. And I feel like we were just talking before we started recording, looking at kids going through ethical issues in my class as I do, sometimes like their snap opinions are just so harsh and like punishing. And I feel like that's what I saw a lot when I was putting together the letterbox for today. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, I'm glad because when I was reading what Jennifer Kent wrote about it, she literally said she was trying to write a realistic view of parenthood because she was saying how taboo it is for mothers to not act as if this is like the best, the best part. And there's nothing bad about it. Being a mom is like the most purest experience in the world. And I look at this and I'm like, how could you, how could anyone say that? Like, and I think that's what makes it so realistic and sad is like Samuel is such a eccentric young boy. He does all these like he loves watching, magic tricks and he likes to make weapons. And he obviously is very affected by the death of a father he never met and stuff. And it's one of those things where it's like, when you see a dog and you're like, that dog is so silly and funny. And then the dog parent looks at you like, try living with him. And you might think like, well, the dog is so sweet and funny. But like, if you're you can be too tired to even appreciate it,
Yeah.
And perhaps if Amelia had even a partner to help her, or even if she didn't have to work a job, or anything, she could appreciate how silly her son is. But she literally can't. Like, she's got nothing in the tank. And I have experience being like I mask a lot and it takes a lot for me to be social with people. And if you don't even have energy, it then makes it so hard to even be nice. Like I can't even do customer service now because like I don't have it in me to be nice to people sometimes.
I think she's got nothing in the tank. And then, her depression and grief, because we see her around the anniversary of the accident / Samuel's birth. Her depression is hitting her very hard. Her neighbor knows that. And her coworker, Daniel Henshaw, by the way, did you recognize him?
Is he the evil guy in this? Because I was like, he looks so familiar. That's wild. Because he's so sweet in this movie.
He is really sweet. He was featured on the podcast when we did the Snowtown murders. So yeah, I paused it. I'm like, it can't be, but it was. Yeah. But he's reaching out so much to her. And at first I thought he was gay. I'm like, he's so nice.
But he clearly wants to like get to know. He likes her.
Yeah. And even if it was gay and it was just, a friendship, she's very like, and I can relate to this. She's very loath to like, accept his help. So, yeah, I just love it. I love this movie. I mean, it's difficult to watch, I think, because it's so relatable. And I feel like, yeah, it was a great choice, but it was really hard for me to watch this movie.
I agree because, or for me as well, because I've never raised a child, obviously, but having cats, even like something that relies on me, and they're perpetually, I mean, now I have kittens and they're perpetually like curious, interested in things, destructive. And like, I think people can do this with kids too, where you project malevolent intent on something because you're just looking at the end result. Like Luffy's tearing up like the mat in here, and the end result is now I have to clean this up. And so I'm thinking, well, he's doing this so that I have to go clean this shit up, you know? No, he's not. He's a cat. He like cannot put those two things together. But when I start assigning that, then I grow resentful. And then when I see him doing it, I have times where I'm like, God fucking damn it. You know, I'm just like pissed off. And it's like, then there's the shame of like, why am I yelling at a cat? Like, what can this cat do? And like all the cat sees is me yelling at him. So then all he thinks is like, this big thing is going to hurt me, you know?
Right.
And it's like, so I don't know. I just have a lot of empathy because I feel like shame when I do that, because I know it's a human response, but it's still not fair to this animal and it doesn't help anything. And it's just an emotional outburst. And then if you were dealing with like a child on top of all that, and now you're thinking like, well, this might be a core memory in this kid's mind. Like that would just be horrible. And I don't know. Also, WoHos, I just got a procedure to make it so that I can never get pregnant. And when I tell you this movie, like I was like, great decision.
That was the other half of the letterbox reviews, you know.
It's like, this is my birth control.
Yeah. But I don't know the name of the author, but I read a science fiction story one time where a guy was attaching malevolent intent to his newborn baby. Oh. And it was because, but actually the baby was evil.
That's great.
But, you know, every time he'd want to have sex with his wife or whatever, you know, the baby would be, you know, having a fit or whatever. So I think you just nailed it. You know, you tapped into that, you know, idea. And especially when you're so tired. And, you know, I think it's interesting that I was sweeping up the kitchen earlier and I was just like, has she been like this for 6 years? And I don't think so. I think she's able to rally, you know, when it's not the anniversary of her husband's death. She's not consistently like sleeping and, you know, all this stuff like for 6 years. I don't think. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell because she's clearly not okay, but it probably was easier when he was younger as well. I mean, I know there's like unique issues with like, you know, a baby, but it's like he seems to be now getting more erratic. You know, they were able to have a joint birthday with her sister's daughter, Ruby, who it wouldn't be on Samuel's actual birthday, but now Ruby's independent too, and she doesn't want to do it with Samuel. And so everything's getting more difficult. And it didn't seem like he had behavioral. I mean, it seemed like he's been having behavioral issues, but not his entire life.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I would love to talk to Jennifer Kent about this because I mean, I feel like, you know, your brother had some behavioral issues, you know, all along. But I mean, at 3, he was kicked out of a daycare, you know, for biting, things like that.
You can laugh now, but I'm sure at the time it was very stressful. Oh my God,
it was really stressful. And like one of the parents of one of the kids who was bitten was angry at me. She's like, I'm so disappointed. And it's almost like she was saying that I put my son up to biting her son or something. And I'm just like, at the time, even I'm just like, you are an insane person. Like,
yeah, this was not a plan. Like, nobody wanted this to happen. And I think that's such a good part of this movie too, is the stares from everybody else.
Yes.
Like, everyone is judging and no one is helping. And then even when people do help, she can't accept it. Like Ms. Roach next door is constantly reaching out to, and she won't accept it. Yeah. And it's such I feel like it's so easy if you've never been in a similar situation to look and be like, well, it's it's simple, but it's not easy. You know, the answers are usually simple, but that doesn't make any of them easy to do, you know, because as another thing is you don't want to appear like society hates moms. They hate them. And you never want to appear, I feel like, as if you're lacking in parental talent. And she's constantly feeling like this because everyone else in her life is. So even when people aren't doing that, she might be thinking like, I don't want Mrs. Roach to think that I can't take care of my son.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I don't think she wants to admit it to herself either,
Yeah.
that she can't take care of her son, or that she
Resents him.
hates him or doesn't like him, or, you know, like when the Babadook, you know, is inside of her and she says, sometimes I think about bashing your head into the wall until your brains spill out. Who wants to admit that they've ever had that thought, you know?
To anyone.
I had, somebody told me one time, they were, when their kid was going, like crying for like hours and hours, there was like nothing they could do. And they were on the second floor of their house and they just kept thinking, I just want to throw him out the window. And I was like, yeah, I think that's totally fair. She didn't do it. Thank God. But you're not even supposed to say that you had that thought. Like you're not. It's wrong for you to have that thought. So I really appreciate that part of this movie because I've had thoughts like that, you know, and I think a lot of parents can relate to that. And it's, like you said, the kid, obviously every kid deserves love and care, but parents also need a fucking break, you know, from it. And it is, especially for a single parent, you know, it's constant.
Yeah. Like any of those other women in the movie who are like, it's like, I just, for people to imagine, it's just like, anytime any of those other parents who are judging Amelia have even a break, have even anybody else to look at their son who loves, and that's the other thing, who loves their son or child. It's like, because she feels so guilty asking her sister Claire to watch him because Claire obviously loathes the child. And you don't want to put your kid in a situation with somebody who loathes them. So that's another thing is like, so you're not really handing him off to someone. You're not really getting a break because she might be thinking like, what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
So anytime any of those people are able to have somebody else love their child and be responsible with their child, that's like time that Amelia is never afforded, and you would just simply not last. Like nobody would. But I'm glad that it's depicted, even if it's so frustrating, because it's like, that's just real. Like people just make up assumptions and whatnot that aren't true. And it will happen. And that's another thing that made me, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I don't want to be a parent, but that is something I thought about, was just like, you'll never win with other parents, but you have to interact with them. Like you'll never, you maybe will find somebody who shares your views and who doesn't judge you, but it seems like it's just full of people judging each other. And I mean, I judge people too, so I'm not even saying I'm like, I feel like we've all been in a public space where we've seen somebody and our first thought is like, now why are you doing that? But it's like, I don't know that kid. Maybe if I was with that kid all day, I'd be like, come here, you little shit, you know? Because we're human. We just can't help it.
Yeah, everybody has a breaking point. And I mean, one thing I am very grateful for is like, we never see her abusing Samuel.
It seems like they took a lot of care with the child actor to make it so that he was never in any situation like that.
Yeah, I saw that too. And then when I watched it again, you can tell that. Like when you're not thinking about it, it seems seamless, but knowing that he was never on set, you know, when she was screaming those kind of things at him.
Thank God.
Yeah, because he was like 6 or 7 or something. So yeah.
And these actors have such great chemistry.
Yeah.
I really think that this little boy is such a great actor. Like sometimes like watching a movie, it's like ruined by the child actor. And I'm like, no offense to the kid actor, like they're literally a kid. That's why it's so rare when you see a kid actor and you're just like, you don't even think I feel like that's what makes this movie also so amazing, is like all the acting is amazing. And I get taken out. I never get taken out and think like I'm watching actors on a screen. I'm just thinking like I'm watching something that's happening.
Yeah. I agree. I think the acting is great and the kid is remarkable and they auditioned a bunch of kids and everything. But also the direction. Like I think a good director is able to, clearly indicate to a child what they need from them.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it was, great marriage of all those things.
Yeah. All right. Kind of got, I mean, this is a great discussion. I kind of got off track. Okay. But yeah, as we said, Sam is now beginning to display a lot of erratic behavior. He's an insomniac and is always thinking about an imaginary monster, which he builds weapons to fight, which obviously I feel like would make anybody freak out if your kid now. He's got like this like a fucking like crossbow and like a launcher and stuff. And she's just like, Amelia is always just like smiling kind of, but she's like, okay, now put that down. Like, don't, let's not do that. Amelia also, okay, this woman also has the worst job I can imagine, working with people in an old folks home who have dementia. Like, that's a whole other layer. I was just talking to Alan the other day about how like, okay, and because it's such a hard job, there's so much abuse in these places. But if you are a good nurse or a good caretaker of anyone, I really think you are like built differently than most humans. And like, you deserve all the money and all the prizes in the world. Like, I cannot imagine being a nurse or working with old people or children or people who have like special needs or something. It's like, and that's why it's like, I really can't imagine it. And I just think you're like a superhero, honestly. Or if you're a teacher, like I read the r/teacher subreddit a lot. And it seems like teachers are I know they've always gone through it, but like, it seems like lately it's only getting worse.
Yeah.
And
I've been doing this for your whole life. And, yeah, it's, well, it's different, and I don't want to go on a whole other tangent, but, in terms of being compassionate, I just had a conversation with a colleague the other day, and, I don't want to be that old lady who's like, kids today, back in my day. I'm like, something is changing, but why? And what can we do to fix it? And I feel like, I'm like, well, let's think about this. If you have a 16-year-old in your class, they've been on a phone for 10 years.
Yeah.
So, since they were litty bitty, like not teenagers, like they've been on a phone since they were in kindergarten, basically. So, I mean, I don't know what that's like, but I know how attached I am to my phone, to ask somebody to pay attention for an hour or 75 minutes, it would be difficult for me. It is difficult for me, and so what would it be like to be that 16 or 17-year-old, and I don't know, that just thought and, helped me a little bit. I think in the fall, what I'm going to do is talk to them and be like, here's what I need from you. And I need to know what you guys need from me and what you think is reasonable and what you think, the consequences should be when you violate the policies, because I feel like we're talking different languages, and that's what makes it so frustrating. But they're just people who've just grown up in a different culture from us. I don't think it's that, they're not like aliens that we're having to teach. They're humans. They've just grown up in a different culture.
Yeah. Yeah. I was watching, and again, it's like, I don't want to cast aspersions. I will reiterate, I've never raised a human. So like, it's not, not coming from a place of judgment. It's real easy for me to see a solution when it's not me in that position. But like, I just feel like if you give young people who already are living in a very anxious time, I know all times are anxious, but like, come on, there's like a shooting every day. It's like kids are anxious. And though everybody's always saying the world is going to fucking end because of climate change, like that is scary. And it's like you give them the most insane coping mechanism that works so well. And then you ask them like, well, now you can't have it. And now you have to be in school, which especially I feel like public, like high school and whatnot, you know, if you don't have any sort of like aspiration, which a lot of them don't, it's like, why am I here? This doesn't matter, you know? And I don't know. It just, I don't know what the answer is, but it's like, it's like you, like I was seeing this family and one of the kids was just on his phone the whole time at like the dinner. And it's like, I understand him. I don't want to be in public. And if then you give me this thing and you've made it that it's okay for me to be on this, it's like, why would they look up from the phone? Who wants to fucking do this? You know, you kind of already fucked up because you gave it to them. And now for them to stop is going to be so much harder, you know? And I don't know.
And you know what's funny is like, I kind of like took all of their suggestions. I put them on a survey to like figure out what we want to debate. And one thing that they want to debate is whether or not social media should be allowed for people under 18.
Wow.
And whether cell phones should be allowed in high school during during teaching hours or whatever.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, it is. So
I feel like a lot of them are going to grow up and realize like, I'm not happy. Like this is fucked up, you know?
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of young people talk about like bemoaning how much their parents put them on social media and saying like, I'll never do this to my kid. And I mean, you and I have talked about vlogging a lot. It's like something I think about a lot. And I'm just like, that's so sad that this is such a part of their consciousness that they're like, this is now their new thing of the thing that they'll never do to their kids, you know?
By the way, I just want to put a call out to WoHos. We have a Finnish movie that is about vlogging, but we want to find an American one.
Yeah.
And specifically family vloggers, you know, like I know there's that Deadstream, but that's not exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about the effect that kind of thing has on kids. So if you guys know of any American films like that, we would really like to do that as a topic for the show.
Yeah. Okay. So one day, Amelia is forced to pick up her son from school because Sam brings one of his weapons there. And the teachers are like, you know, now we're going to separate him from the kids and give him a monitor. And she absolutely does not like that idea, which I love her. She's just like, they keep calling him the boy and stuff. And she's like, do not call him the boy. He has a name. It's Samuel. And that, you know, she's like, he does not need to be separated from the kids. He needs understanding. And in a way, I do like the teacher is like, I've got 24 other kids in there. Do you want me to stop everything just to help him? And it sucks because it's like, well, yeah, I mean, yeah, that is what he deserves. But I also understand where that teacher's coming from. So it's just a horrible situation. So Amelia just decides, well, I'm just going to take him out of school. So that night, Sam asks his mom to read up a pop-up storybook called Mr. Babadook that he says he just found on the shelf. And this book is made so well. Like it looks handmade, but in a really good way. And it's all like black and white ink. And the way that the camera hits, like it's very zoomed in on like each and every word as she reads it. I just think it looks really good. And so it describes the Babadook, a tall, pale-faced humanoid in a top hat with taloned fingers that torments its victims after they become aware of its existence. And the way it's written also is really good. It's like, look at him. He's quite funny looking, isn't he? And I just feel like I think it's so interesting that they had him look like that because obviously the mom is not wearing this hat, but it kind of reminds me of what like a dad would wear, I guess, of like the hat and it's coming home. And so I feel like that's so interesting that obviously this is exploring abuse from a mom's perspective, but that the kind of archetype we have in mind is like, I like, it kind of reminds me of like the movie The Stepfather, I guess, is like, that's the look of the Babadook. It's the scary monster that's supposed to be an abusive parent, but it's designed around a man more so than a woman. Interesting. So as she reads the book, it just gets more and more unsettling. Like it basically says, once you see what's underneath, you'll wish you were dead. And this part is so good because then Samuel starts saying like, Mommy, does it get the boy? Does it get him? And the way he says that is just how children talk, I feel like, is like, I don't know. And so then he starts crying. It then cuts to like her putting the book away and reading him another book as he's like moaning and crying in her like, you know, like his head is in her stomach and stuff. And I just feel like the way scenes escalate in this it's so good because it just gets like crazier and so much louder. And so Amelia is obviously very disturbed and just puts the book on top of the shelf, and that's it. And then Sam becomes convinced that the Babadook is real. And so now she has a lot of like sleepless nights comforting him. Like they sleep in the same bed and his teeth are grinding and he like moans and grabs onto her and she clearly cannot sleep.
Yeah.
The little detail of that is so good.
No, sleeping in a bed with a child sounds horrible. You're not sleeping at all. Yeah.
Yeah. I even wrote, I was like, wanting to sleep in your own bed is very real. Like I even feel that, you know, now sometimes, you know, if somebody's in the bed next to you snoring, you're kind of like, oh, it kind of be nice if I was alone right now.
Yeah, I don't usually remain. One of us doesn't usually remain in the bed with the other.
It's a weird thing we came up with.
I know it is weird. I mean, I'm sure it was out of necessity for a long time, but now if you have enough space, you know, like I do, thankfully, it's nice to have your own bed. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, also their house is so dreary.
Oh yeah.
Whose choice was it to paint these walls black? It's like the scariest house ever.
Yeah, there's like a lot of blues, I think. You know, a lot of blues and grays. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there is a making of online that I would recommend people watch. And the set design is something really incredible. Like that one shot where they're at the table, you know, it's very symmetrical with the fireplace in the background, and I mean all that stuff, and the colors was definitely intentional. So.
Yeah. So soon after, some strange events begin to occur, like doors open and close. There's strange sounds, and then at one point, Amelia finds like glass shards in her food.
Yeah.
It's just not good. So she attributes all of the events to Sam's behavior, but he blames the Babadook, which really frustrates her. She finds the book again and rips it up and disposes of it, just throws it in the trash. And there's like a scene with her sister, Claire, Auntie Claire, who Claire is just a total asshole. She has her daughter Ruby, and Ruby and Sam share their birthdays, or Sam will share Ruby's birthday party with her, but she tells Amelia, well, Ruby doesn't want to share her birthday with Sam this year because she wants a princess party, which I feel like is the excuse she gave, but it's really because Ruby does not really like Samuel. And like through all of this, like Samuel is climbing up on this swing set, calling out to Amelia, and she's just ignoring him. But eventually he gets on the very top and then falls off. And I don't think he breaks his leg, but he's definitely hurt when she's driving him home. He's just like screaming in the car. Yeah, there's this like great scene also where like Amelia is so tired playing, like she's doing like bingo for the old people, and they're just like not, I mean, they're like all super old and they don't really hear her. And so she just kind of keeps saying little things under her breath. Like she's like, another few days and someone could call bingo, and just nobody reacts. And then the next number she calls is 5 billion. And she's caught by like, I guess her supervisor. And then later she talks to Robbie, her coworker, and he's just like, you know, he's like, you know, hey, she was unimpressed with your bingo skills. Well, how about you go home? Like, I'll take the rest of your day. And she's like, oh, well, I'll give you my pay. And he's like, do not worry about it. She lies and says that it's because Sam is sick, because he's not in school now, because she took him out of school. And also, I forgot to mention, but there's a scene where like, because we see a lot of scenes of her like looking wistfully at like romantic movies or like couples that are out and about. And so one night when she finally has Sam sleeping, she tries to masturbate with a vibrator, and like all the tension is building in the scene. And then Samuel just like jumps on her bed because he's scared about the Babadook. And I was like, can't even masturbate. This poor woman, she's going out of her mind. But he's also very sweet. It's like, he's like, well, mommy, I'll protect you and I'll make sure nothing bad happens to you. And she can't even appreciate it because she's just so like, give me a break. And then Robbie like surprises her at her house with flowers, and he got a toy for Samuel and he gives it to him. He's like, well, my mom always got me this when I was sick. And Samuel goes, I'm not sick. And Amelia kind of breaks down and she's like, yeah, he's not sick. He actually can't go to school anymore because he's so disobedient. Have you ever heard of that, Robbie? Of a kid who can't even go to school? And Samuel's like, you're lying. You said that's not why I had to not be in school. It's just a mess. We never see Robbie again. So then it's Ruby's birthday party. And after Ruby blows out the candles, Samuel is just hanging on to Amelia and she just kind of like wrenches him off and she's like, now go play with them. Like she needs him to leave the room. Then we have this troop of judgmental moms and one of them says, well, I work with a lot of disadvantaged women who have also gone through a similar loss. And I kind of forget the rest of what she says, but the camera focuses on Amelia as she's just kind of, that comment has like really made her upset. Cause like, yeah, what the fuck? And, then the same woman starts being like, well, I'm so busy right now. I can't even go to the gym now. And Amelia goes, that's a tragedy. That is horrible. Do you have something to talk about then? When you talk with those disadvantaged women? Because that's just not being able to go to the gym. I can't imagine. And of course, now everyone feels awkward. But it's like, well, y'all made her feel awkward. So, and so then later we see that Ruby is like all these girls are playing out. Oh, no, there's like a creepy like clown there who's kind of Babadook-esque. And Samuel is hiding in Ruby's treehouse and she goes up there and just starts like attacking him. She's like, well, you can't be up here. It's my treehouse. And he goes, I'm not hurting anyone. And she goes like, everybody else has a dad, but you don't have one. And it's because, you're such a, you're so weird. Nobody likes you. Your dad died so that he wouldn't have to be your dad. Like just saying the worst shit to him. And then meanwhile, like all the other judgmental moms have kind of dispersed. So Claire and Amelia are talking. Claire's just being a total bitch. She's like, move on. It's been 7 years. It's like, move on from what? Seeing your husband die? Like, what are you talking? Anytime that has ever happened, like somebody's like, oh, this loss, just move on. It's like, you literally don't ever move on from something like that. And Claire is saying like, I have moved on. I don't bring him up. I don't talk about him, which is like, this is not a good thing. And she's like, Claire, I listen to you talk and you never, ever offer to help or to come over. And then Ruby reveals to Samuel, Mom says she doesn't want to go over to your house anymore because it's so depressing. And Claire then says, I don't ever want to go over because I don't like your son. And that obviously hurts Amelia's feelings. And she goes, you don't even like your son. Oh my God. And so then all this boils over to Samuel pushing Ruby out of the treehouse. And Claire is obviously very upset. And she says to Amelia, like, watch the children to make sure nobody else gets hurt. Just so horrible. So then, Amelia's upset driving Samuel home. He's like kicking on her seat and stuff and screaming. And then is it then that she thinks that she sees the Babadook in like the car? No, that's later.
No, he does.
Yeah, he thinks he sees it. Like he looks to his left and he's like, get out. And then he begins having a seizure. So she stops the car and takes him to the doctor. And the doctor basically says like, I guess his brain like overheated or something. And they're going to run some tests. And this woman is such a great actress. Like she just looks so tired and like run down and tears. Her eyes are wet. And he suggests that, that she's take him to see a psychiatrist, but it'll be a few weeks out. So she asks him, can you give me something, like anything, like a pill or something to deal with him because he can't sleep and I can't sleep. And the doctor like looks at her and he's so judgmental, but he's like, well, I can prescribe like a sedative. Most parents don't want their children on this, but she's like, well, I just need him to sleep. And so he gives her like a week's prescription for both of them to be able to take it. Poor Amelia. And I wrote, like, I understand Claire being upset, but legit, no one can do what Amelia is doing and do a good job. Like, just nobody could do it. So the following morning, Amelia finds the Mr. Babadook book reassembled on the front doorstep. Now words taunt her, saying that the Babadook will become stronger if she continues to deny its experience, containing pop-ups of her killing their dog Bubsy, Sam, and then herself in the same like creepy style. Because now she's coping using drugs, which, I mean, yeah, you can't do with depression. Like, it will be bad. She's, just forcing her child to sleep so that she can sleep. It's not a good situation, even if it feels like a reprieve. So yeah, I just wrote, like, to deny, the stronger I get. Using something to cope with mental illness like drugs, it makes issues worse. And I said, mental health is scary, depression is scary, and anxiety is a prison. It is. It's horrible. So terrified, Amelia burns the book and runs to the police station after she gets a phone call from the Babadook. Like, she talks to Claire on the phone, who's being a total bitch. And then she gets another call back, and it's the Babadook just going, Babadook. So she tries to report like a case of stalking to the police station, saying that somebody put a children's book on her doorstep, to which these cops laugh at her. And she's like, containing images of me and my son and my dog being killed, which shuts everyone up. But she doesn't have the book because she burned it and she can't prove anything. So the police are just basically like, well, there's nothing we can do. And she thinks that she sees the Babadook suit hung up behind the front desk. And then there's all these great shots of after she sees that, it like pans to all of the cops' faces just looking at her. It's like now she's getting really paranoid and she's like, okay, understandable. Well, I'll just go then, and just like runs out of there, which I also think is great because when you're sleep deprived and depressed, it's like everyone does feel like the enemy. That night, Amelia tries to fall asleep and watches the Babadook open her bedroom door, crawl up on the ceiling, and drop down, like, and it goes inside of her, basically. Like, we don't see that, but we see this creepy thing crawl up on the wall, its face as it drops down, and then like her mouth opening up. So now she's really giving in to these like thoughts that she's having. So then she turns on all the lights in the house and falls asleep with Sam downstairs. But after that attack happens, she basically just gets like a lot worse. Like, she is becoming isolated. There's this really tragic scene where she's sleeping in bed and Samuel comes in and he's like, Mom, well, I was just looking, I wanted to eat some food, because he's supposed to take food with the pills or he'll get nauseous. He's like, well, Mommy, I looked and there's no food in the fridge. And she's just like ignoring him, but you can see on her face she's getting so much more angry. And she shouts at him. I forget what she says.
Why don't you eat shit?
Yeah. She's like, well, if you're so hungry, then why don't you go and eat shit? And he, of course, runs away. It's just so sad hearing this little boy go, Mommy, I was hungry. So she goes back and lays in bed, but then we see her later get up and she's clearly like so upset by what she said. And she goes to talk to Samuel in his room and he's huddled up in the corner and he like flinches away from her when she reaches for him. And she's like, I don't even know why I said that. I haven't slept and it just came out. But he obviously isn't really, hearing her. And she's like, well, I'll make you something. What do you want to eat? And he goes, I'm not hungry anymore. Oh, it just kills you. So then she offers to take him to, I don't know, like a Chili's type restaurant. And it cuts to them sitting there and behind them is a mom with like 5 kids and they're all going crazy. And she and Samuel are sitting silently, just like looking at each other. And I love that scene because it's like, I don't know, it's very similar of like, we're watching another mom who's very tired, you know, you snapping at all her kids, like, you sit down, do this, obviously not being very nice and caring to them, but she's got like 5 children to deal with. Contrast, like, Amelia and Samuel look like they're very perfectly behaved next to them, but like it could not be further from the truth. Like there's such, so I feel like that's such a great scene of like, people judge what they see, but even if you see a child acting like super well behaved, it's like that could still be a really horrible situation.
Oh yeah.
And in fact, I feel like if you see a child be more selfish or whatnot, that's like a better indicator of that kid being in a better place than if you
Yeah.
see a child put together, silent, not doing, like that's a warning sign, you know, that
Yeah, definitely. Like,
yeah.
I think this is, I don't know, you know, what Kent's like childhood was like, but I mean, this is really like, you know, textbook abuse, you know, like the kid going, I'm not hungry anymore, because that's what a person in an abusive relationship does. Like, okay, no, I'm the problem, so I won't be the problem anymore. You know, just please stop being like mean mommy or whatever it is, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just so tragic that she's reached this point.
Yeah.
That, you know.
And he was such a interesting, eccentric, funny kid. And now we only see him either almost try to take care of her, like an almost 7-year-old, or be just completely like, I'm not here, you can't see me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
So I just think this scene is just so just perfect, the way you see the two of them and how he used to be kind of like those kids, but now she's like forced him to be like this because she's been so horrible to him. It's really subtle. So her mental health just begins to decay, and she herself exhibits very erratic and violent behavior. Like she catches Samuel calling Mrs. Roach, asking if they can sleep there tonight because he keeps telling her that they cannot sleep in that house. And she grabs the phone from him, and then this whole scene is just so good. On the phone with Mrs. Roach, we can hear her being like, is everything okay? Samuel called and you guys can definitely come and stay over. And she's like, no, we're fine. Samuel is just disobeying me again. And she like slams the phone off, and she's like, I told you not to call anyone, and so you directly disobeyed me. She takes all of the batteries out of the phone and then grabs a huge knife and cuts the phone line and just like kind of points the knife at him. And he's obviously so scared. And she's like, well, don't worry, I'll make sure nobody gets in, you know, and it's just so creepy. So then they're watching a movie, and she's seeing like the Babadook in these like movie scenes. It's like just clearly something is going wrong.
Well, I think there's the cabinet of Dr. Caligari where that figure like stands up, and it looks a lot like the Babadook. And then there's a picture from Black Sunday, I think it is, or Black Sabbath or something like that. It's like an old Mario Bava film, the one with the head. Yeah. So yeah, a lot of these images are. Well, the thing about the TV, that was a little bit talking to me, you know, because I feel like when I'm depressed, that's all I do is I just sit there and watch TV. And I mean, I'm not as bad as I used to be, but when I get into that mode, it really is a warning sign to me. My brain's just like, uh-oh, time to go get some sunshine or something, like, you know, because there have been times in my life where I'm so depressed, that's basically all I can do. And so I liked it that she included that, because she's just sitting and she is, you know, hanging on and just watching TV like for hours and hours and hours. And I just got like, just hit my heart. It's just like such a great picture of like that isolation, you know. And I know she's not drinking or anything, but that kind of isolation is very alcoholic. And the bugs, I thought, was really reminiscent of like detoxing off of alcohol. Some people experience like seeing bugs or feeling bugs like crawling on their skin and stuff. So I wondered if I was just reading into that, which is entirely possible, but the bugs were like,
they had like
such
this little
scary
chittering
thing.
noise that were
Yes.
so
and it's similar to the Babadook. He chitters too. So
yeah. There's like the usage of sound in this movie is just so good. Like there's so much you
Really
won't even realize, but like it just like that's okay. I know there's like the whole boiling frog metaphor for abuse. I feel like that's done with sound in this movie so often is you won't even realize how crazy the sound has gotten because it immediately will cut out. That's happened but it never got old for me. Like I never really realized it was about to happen until every time it happened. And it just did such a great job of like increasing the tension because I feel like and that scene of her sleeping or trying to sleep and he keeps talking to her is also such a good like I just have had a lot of issues sometimes with anger and like an angry outburst and stuff. And that is what happens is like you just keep like getting more and more angry and you're not dealing with it until you've gone to a place you can't get back from and you say something horrible to somebody or you yell or something or you like hit something and then afterwards like you're so deflated after and I just feel like this movie does such a great job showing that it's just so good. I'll fight anyone who doesn't like this movie or says it's not good. And as she's watching the TV, it starts devolving into these hallucinations. One in which when she looks and Samuel's just sitting dead next to her, all bloody, and she gets up and starts screaming, and he goes, "Mommy, mommy!" And she's holding the knife, and he's like crouched. Oh my god, that scene kills me. So there's also a great there's this moment where she notices all of these like little roaches and she moves her fridge back and there's like a hole in the wall where all of them are coming out of. Then these I don't know what the Aussie version, I don't remember what they're called, but I guess they're like Child Protective Services. They've come because even though Samuel's only been out of school for 2 days, he's not registered to any school. And so I guess that's something that gets flagged. And so they come to talk to her. And then Samuel says like, I'm mommy, I'm really tired from the drugs you gave me. And she goes, not drugs, tranquilizers from the doctor. And they just look like horrified. And she's in the middle of cleaning since she saw all these bugs. And when she's explaining this, she looks and the hole that the bugs had been coming out of is patched up. And she's like, I mean, it was a hole in the wallpaper. And they're like, oh, we've caught you at a bad time. And they like give her a card and they leave. And they're saying like, well, we'll be back in a week. Oh yeah, and she also sees this like news. I'm sorry, I'm flipping around a lot, but one of the things she sees when she hallucinates is this news story of a woman killing her 7-year-old son, and then she sees herself in the window of like a shot of the news story. It's just so good.
Oh god, that's such a great shot,
right?
Of like a crazy version of herself, like looking out the window,
smiling all evilly.
So it's like she can see herself. She's projecting all this, like herself literally going crazy.
Yeah.
And who hasn't done that?
I mean, like you were saying,
scary.
Yeah, like the thought of like, I just want to throw you out the window or something like that. It's like thoughts are not crimes. You can have a thought for literally any reason, and it is not indicative of who you are as a person. But it feels like it is when you think something horrible. Like,
well, and I mean, she's totally locked herself away, her and her son, you know, and when these Child Protective Service people come over, that's like very scary. That's scary for anybody, you know, to have these authorities being like, well, we're going to come back.
Yeah.
You know,
get your shit together.
We might, you better get your shit together in the next week or you're going to be in trouble. We're going to take your kid away or something. Like that's.
Yeah, I can't. And he even keeps saying to her, like, I don't want them to take you away.
Yes.
It's like, it's so sad that this child recognizes this. Like that even at this young of an age, he's like, my mom's losing it.
Yeah.
And trying to communicate in a way only a kid can of just like, I don't want you to be hurt. I don't want them to take you away. Ugh.
What a scary thought. I
Yeah,
mean,
because
especially for him, because then he wouldn't have anybody.
yeah, I glossed over it earlier, but there's a scene where he's like their basement. She always locks up because that's where she keeps all of her late husband's stuff, and she catches him in there. He's basically putting on this little show with all these stuffed animals plus a photo of Amelia and Oscar together. And when she catches him, she's so upset because he's messing with all of his stuff that she has packed away. And he says to her, like, he's my dad too. You don't own him. And it's just so sad. Like, he's just trying to connect with his dad that he never had. But for her, it's too painful to even think about him. So, and I mean, I understand if you saw your late husband's stuff strewn about, and a kid, like there's like a record outside of its case and stuff. And like, he was a musician. So there's all these like things, you'd be upset, but it's like, he's just trying to feel something, you can't be upset at this kid. So shortly after these visions, Amelia sees an apparition of Oscar, her husband, who offers to return to her if she brings the boy to him. Don't call him the boy. So she realizes that he is a creation of the Babadook. She flees and is stalked through the house by the Babadook until it finally possesses her for real, which kind of already thought it had been, but no, now it's for real. So under its influence, she picks up Bugsy the dog, breaks his neck. We don't really see it. We just see like his butt, and then he kind of goes limp, which he's been growling at her a lot too. There's a great scene where she wakes up and he's sitting next to like Samuel, who's curled facing the couch, like away from her. And he's just kind of standing, and he's like one of those little white dogs, but he's standing like protectively over him. It's really sweet. I was really sad about Bugsy.
Yeah, it kind of gave me May vibes, when she killed the cat.
Yeah, but I
May.
feel like that cat death was good because it was so off screen. You didn't even hear like a whine. I hate it whenever they add like a whine from an animal. That kills me. But I feel like as far as cat deaths go, that one was very tame.
But I mean, again, we'll get to Letterboxd, but and we already covered this when we talked about like
people
the innocence. But people shut the movie off or like gave it a half star because the dog died.
I'm sorry, but like, I don't think you should be watching horror movies then. If that upsets you so much, like, I don't think you can watch them. And I don't say that in like a little baby, but it's like, I don't know, you shouldn't. Or you should look up, does the dog die? And if it affects you, don't fucking watch the movie. This should grow up. That is not the worst part of this movie. Like, there's so much more horrible things. So she attempts to kill Sam, but doesn't. There's a great moment where he's like, "You're not my mom," and she screams, "I am your mother," which I love that. Like, so really sad because she is like, this is his mom, but he has to, which makes the Babadook whole metaphor thing so sad that you would see your parent as this scary monster, and that's them when they're bad, but when they're good, they're okay. I don't know. That is so depressing to me. So Samuel lures her into the basement and knocks her out. Tied up, Amelia awakens with Sam terrified nearby. She tries to strangle him, but as she's doing it, he lovingly caresses her face, which causes her to regurgitate an inky black substance, which expels the Babadook. Samuel reminds Amelia that you can't get rid of the Babadook, and then an unseen force drags him into Amelia's bedroom. So she manages to save him, but is forced by the Babadook to rewatch a vision of her husband's death. So like her husband's standing there and repeating the words he said before he died, which like right before he died, he's like, "Oh, I think it's about to rain." And admittedly, like the worst effects of the movie, like half of his head is like sliced off, which is pretty fucked up but I don't feel like that was necessary. Like,
no,
I thought that was the worst looking thing in the movie, and that effect does not hold up in any way. It looks bad, and I even feel like it would have been more effective if it was, I don't know how they could have done this, but if they could have shown him like, if there was a way to show him like being just like how you imagine in a car accident, like being hit, I guess, and maybe glass going everywhere. I feel like that would have looked so much better than just this weird, perfect slice of the head. Like, how would that even happen in a car accident? I don't know. But, this is obviously her having to face her trauma. Very Wendell and Wild when, I forget her name, but the main cat has to watch her trauma to be able to overcome it. And so then she confronts the Babadook, making the beast retreat into the basement, and she locks the door behind it. So then this is around a few days later. Amelia and Sam have recovered. She's now very attentive and caring towards him and having a birthday party for him on the day of his birthday. Like he's doing all these magic tricks and she's impressed by them. And she's like, that's amazing. And really encouraging his creativity. And the social workers come again and they still acknowledge that this family is very kooky, but Samuel explains like, this is the first birthday I've ever had on my birthday. And in Samuel fashion is like, well, my dad died when he was driving my mom to give birth to me. And they just look at him like, oh, but instead of being like, Sam, shut up or something like that, Amelia goes, well, he's just like his father. He just says exactly what's on his mind, which I thought was a very sweet detail too, that she doesn't try to down or like neg her son in any way. It's just like, yeah, that was a lot, but that's just how he is. And so Samuel gathers some earthworms in a bowl and Amelia takes them to the basement. Samuel asks if he could see it, but she says, when you're older. And she places the bowl on the floor. And there's like a great scene where like it just shows the actress as like she's kind of forced back and is like waving her arms. I mean, it's very like stylistic, but she's like about to fall over again. But then she surges back forward. I feel like showing that like it is still very hard to manage this depression, but she almost falls. It's not easy, but she manages to push it back again. And then the Babadook takes the earthworms and eats it, and she returns to the yard to celebrate Sam's birthday. And the last shot is her cradling Samuel in her arms, and they just both look really happy, which is very sweet. I'm so glad that it ended. I mean, obviously rips Bugsy, but like, I love the ending to this movie.
Yeah, me too.
I've seen people say that they think it's corny. Fuck you. I think it's very healthy and amazing to have to acknowledge the fact that like mental illness is something that if you have it, you will struggle with it your whole life. And it like literally will not be easy, but you can do it. It's very hopeful without being like, she did it and now she's done,
Right. Yeah.
Well, here's some trivia. Director Jennifer Kent holds the rights to the film. When asked if there would be a sequel, she said, I will never allow any sequel to be made because it's not that kind of film. I don't care how much I'm offered. It's just not going to happen. I love her. She seems awesome. Several female critics were offended by the portrayal of Amelia, stating that no mother would ever mistreat her son like that. Okay. What? What? Way to downplay the trauma of like so many. Where do you think the term mommy issues came up from? Like, what are you saying that no mother would ever do that? Like, what are you talking about? I feel like we don't make the problem go away by saying it doesn't happen,
Right. Well, that's exactly what the movie is saying too.
Yeah. Like, and I feel like this movie did such a great job of showing how nuanced the issue is, of showing that like Amelia's not evil. She's not doing the right thing, but like that if she had any sort of help, it would have made it all easier, and that's fucked up. However, director,
and also,
what?
Sorry. And also I just feel like for her, I've lost people. I've never lost anyone. Well, losing Cole was pretty hard, but I mean, I've not been exactly in her situation, but I mean, I feel like It is really hard to face it because it hurts like a motherfucker, and I can only imagine when you have trauma on top of like the pain of the loss. I mean, it's really difficult to go right up to it and look at it and examine it. And so I mean, I love it that she's portrayed this way. Like you said earlier, she's like, I never bring it up. I don't even want to talk about it, which is not healthy, but totally understandable, so I feel like that's also when she had the courage to do that is when, everything turned around.
Yeah. And I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, like she is so alone and so like, I know she's got a lot of people in her life, but it's like her sister obviously sucks, is not understanding at all. And she doesn't seem like she has any friends really. And maybe the closest person, I mean, definitely the closest person in her life was her husband. And just like to lose him and now have a whole human to take care of on the same day, like, what are you talking about? Like you said, it's like there's trauma and loss. Even just going through a car accident would be trauma. But then if you had to reconcile the loss of a husband, like what?
That's why I always feel like so sad for people who lose a loved one like on a holiday.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be another holiday in a year, you know? And it's just like, I've had things like that where the anniversary is coming up and you can sort of feel it. You're like, oh, must be November. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
And I just feel like that's like super hard. What was that movie with the two mothers? The French one. Oh, L'Intérieur, or like the Inside.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a great starting point for a movie because just like this one, it's like it's supposed to be one of your happiest days of your life to like have your child. And then it's also the worst day of her life because she lost her husband.
Yeah. And also a child's birthday, children are already narcissistic, like literally by design, they cannot help it. And then it's the kid's birthday. That's the day he's supposed to feel like the number one person in the world,
Right.
What a whammy. It makes everything about this movie so good. It's so well thought out.
Yeah.
So Jennifer Kent clapped back at these female critics and said that she was approached by several women afterwards who admitted that being a mother is hard and it would sometimes give them negative thoughts of mistreating their children, even if they would never act on such ideas. Most women thanked Kent for finally addressing that taboo. And I would take it a step further to say that, like, there probably were, like I said, I feel like every child deserves safety, but that and love and whatnot. But it's like, I even feel like if you have at times mistreated a child, like, I'm not saying on behalf of those children, I forgive you, but I'm saying that like if everybody who does something wrong is now a villain forever, then we're fucked, Like, then we're fucked up. And I don't want to, like, I literally do not want to live in that world where like you make one mistake and now that person's a demon forever. It's like, I want to live in the world where people can be better people and grow. And if we literally say to everyone, like, well, if you ever did this, you're a bad person. It's like, that's okay. We're all fucked, Like, I don't even mean that in the way of like, we've all done bad things. I mean that in the way of like, we are all fucked. That means the world is worse now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's a very limiting. Yeah, I don't like this. I mean, people have always done this, but I don't like this trend now. Like, in terms of, fucking up, and then
Now
everything you've ever done is canceled. I didn't want to say cancel, but I mean, that's what it is, right? You're canceled and you can never come back from that. And you're just a bad person. We found out what a shitty person you are. The end.
Yeah.
It's like,
jeez. Because like people make, and like obviously some people don't make the effort, and that's the whole point of like,
yeah,
there are people who won't get better, and that's true. But like, there are people who will, and like, I don't know. I think about all the stupid things I've thought or said, and I'm like, I feel like often you cannot be a better person until you make a mistake, you know? Like,
Yeah.
because we cannot be born with knowledge of how every human's lives are. Like, literally, if you are not a part of, like, say, a demographic, there's issues you could not even fathom are issues because they are not issues to you. And so you might make an assumption, but then later if you learn and you realize that you thought something, you were ignorant, that's great. Now you can go about the world and be better.
Yeah. Yeah. I just thought of another thing about kids today, and I feel like sometimes they're very shy to express their opinions because of this.
Yeah.
You know, because like they're afraid that, you know, they're going to condemn themselves to being socially ostracized, you know, if they speak their real feelings. Some don't have any problem expressing their feelings, but often I'll like ask a question and they're like, well, I can see both sides to that. And I'm like, but in this class, you need to take a stand, and they don't want to do it because it's very scary to, you know, say that whatever, we should keep the death penalty or whatever it is, you know? And so it must be hard to grow like with cancel culture being like so vivid to them.
Cause yeah, I don't think, cause I have had that same feeling of like, I don't want to fuck up, because it comes from you know, I think it also comes from a place of wanting to be nice to everyone and not wanting to say something that hurts somebody's feelings. But there are sometimes you don't even know that you think something until you say it out loud, you know? And you can't ever correct any like biases you have if you sometimes don't just say something stupid, you know? Or put your foot in your mouth. Like, life will go on. It'll be okay.
If you have the safety, you know, if you're given the opportunity to fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, what does Letterboxd have to say about it? Ada gave it 5 stars. I'll never grow tired of this film. Like, dang, it still packs the same devastating wallop that it did when I saw it nearly 10 years ago for the first time. The difference between then and now is that initially, I couldn't relate to the epilogue. Flash forward, now I can. Processing trauma, yo. What a journey. Not much more to say other than that I truly love this movie. Softly strokes movie's face. Spencer gave it 5 stars. I also eat worms when I'm angry. Oh, wow.
Okay, Spencer.
Man Trash gave it 5 stars. Maybe an odd film for a mother-son movie night, but she loved it because we're a cool mother-son duo. Aww.
Oh, just like us.
We are a cool mother-son duo. Well, Ari gave it a half star. Why the fuck did I watch this? Anyone who charges money for people to see this movie is a baba crook. Okay, I think that's kind of silly because I don't think I even had the chance to see it in theaters, and I saw it with my Netflix subscription. So who's paying to see this movie? Ari.
The other pun that I cut out was just baba poop.
I'm glad you still said it though. Baba poop. Hallie _Fry gave it a half star. Booty. And Rain Nicola gave it a half star. Girl, this shit was hot ass. Thank you, Rain, for the ass review. Well, what phobia is that? Bibliophobia is an intense fear of books. Cynophobia is an extreme fear of dogs. And globophobia is an extreme, overwhelming, and irrational fear of balloons. I will say, I cannot control my emotions when a balloon is in the room because I'm just like, what if it gets popped?
That's so crazy because like Libby and I have it. I don't know if Adrian has it. Libby and I have it like big time. And I just figured, because my dad was really terrible about boundaries, that he probably just like thought it was hilarious to pop balloons in our ears or our faces or something like that. But is it genetic? Like, where did you get it? Because like I never wanted balloons around me, like, even when you were little.
Yeah,
So
I feel like I didn't always feel this way, but I just always am like, what if it gets popped? And then I have to
Yeah.
hear that noise. So I don't
Yeah.
like anytime I see one, I'm Frigopanophobia is a phobia which is an events and actions phobia, in this case, birthday party.
Yeah, I was trying to find a fear of birthday parties, but yeah. Friganophobia.
Friganophobia.
No, fragapanophobia.
It's a great word.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's rate this in terms of picture books. I think I would give it 4.5. I have to take off.
I did too. I did on Letterboxd.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I have to take off a half star for the dad, his like half head getting decapitated. I just feel like that scene's a bit egregious.
Yeah, same.
What have we learned? Well, I think we've learned a lot of things.
Yeah, we've talked about what we've learned.
Yeah. Would we watch it again? Yeah, but probably in a little bit.
A year.
Yeah. Favorite scene / death? I don't know. I like all of the scenes of her losing it. I feel like this actress is amazing.
Yeah, the part where she says she sometimes thinks of slamming him into a wall.
It's pretty good.
It's so memorable, and she's so scary. So I think that's my favorite.
Yeah. Who wins the You Fool Award? I'm going to say Claire. Because first off, your kid's an asshole.
Yeah.
You're an asshole. And why did you think it was okay for somebody to call to insinuate that your sister is a disadvantaged woman, or to that was just I love that scene too, because it's just so filled with pity, but gross pity and judgment. You're a fool.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Well, thank you, Mac, for having this conversation today with me about the Babadook.
Of course, it was a pleasure.
And for choosing this film.
I love it.
And thank you, WoHos, for joining us for this episode and for all your support. It means the world of horror to us, truly. Next time, we're going to be looking at slasher films with the Slumber Party Massacre from the US and Flashback, not Slashback, we already did that one, Flashback from Germany. If you are enjoying this podcast, please tell all your friends all about us. Remember, WoHos, we love you, and don't go into the basement.
Yay!